Chronic Illness Therapist podcast. This is meant to be a place where people with chronic illnesses can come to feel heard, seen, and safe while listening to mental health therapists and other medical professionals talk about the realities of treating difficult conditions. This might be a new concept for you, one in which you never have to worry about someone inferring that it's all in your head. We dive deep into the human side of treating complex medical conditions and help you find professionals that leave you feeling hopeful for the future. I hope you love what you learn here, and please consider leaving a review or sharing this podcast with someone you love. Lucy Dunning is the owner of Blue Sky Family Counseling and Coaching and Dunning Divorce Resolutions. She specializes in chronic pain and health conditions, and she's an advocate and support group leader for the U.S. Pain Foundation in the state of Georgia and both Carolinas. She runs free support groups every third Thursday of the month, and she's a member of the National Organization of Rare Diseases, or NORD, and often does advocacy work for chronic pain and healthcare changes by speaking to legislatures about the disparities of patients with chronic health conditions for NORD. She's a certified provider of Empowered Relief, which is a 2-hour CBT program for chronic pain patients supported by Stanford University. She's worked with Applied VR and their research on virtual reality and chronic pain, and currently uses Applied VR technology in her private practice with chronic pain clients. She's also a chronic pain patient herself, in addition to being a therapist. Lucy provides individual therapy for chronic pain, free support groups with U.S. Pain Foundation, and a parenting and chronic pain therapy group. In her private practice, she uses specific virtual reality for chronic pain, animal-assisted therapy, the Empowered Relief Program, and has a chronic pain coach at her office who offers a sliding scale.
So that's cool that you do this. I was reading about like what you do, and like, so you interview like therapists with that do chronic pain.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. I'll probably expand into other medical professionals later, physical therapists and nutritionists, doctors. I do know quite a few people who have this specialty in other medical professions, but for right now, I'm just trying to, one, build the community around therapists who specialize in this. And then two, like, I feel like people with chronic pain just have no idea how therapy can help them, and it often feels like it's just in your head. So like going to a therapist just proves that. So that's kind of my goal with the podcast, is to help demystify that for just people who don't understand like what therapy can do for them.
That's awesome. Like, I love that you do that, and you're helping like spread the word and with the population, because there's not enough, I feel like, resources and support for that for the community.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, and there's just so much online of like people who claim to cure your disease, and, like social media is just filled with that. And so, my goal is to hopefully override some of that. I had just posted, I'm pretty active on social, and I just posted, somebody commented on TikTok saying like, I just found myself over on the other side of TikTok where like everyone just wants to cure your disease. Like, this is so refreshing to hear. And yeah, we like need a place of hope, because I feel like online, that's like what happens. It's like all, we're going to die, or it's like, here's how I can cure your illness with food. And there's like no in between.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have chronic pain?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
What
yeah.
do you have? If you
Well,
don't mind.
yeah. I mean, I started out, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And that's like a big one in that whole community of like healing. And there's just a lot there.
Yes.
I didn't have a diagnosis for like 8 years after I had contracted it. So there was no treatment for all that time. So then it just turned into a lot of like fibromyalgia type pain, joint pain, brain fog, neurological, like dizzy spells, like POTS symptoms, like all of the whole trifecta.
Yeah.
So yeah. How about
That's
you?
hard. Yeah, I have complex regional pain syndrome type 2.
Okay.
So it took forever for a diagnosis. And yeah, I feel like I was chasing, I've had a lot of surgeries now, and I've had 10 within the past 5 years. I'm done now. Like, there's no more. But it was like it took forever, and it was one of those invisible illnesses, that um the one the one I do have, type 2, they were able to do a pathology report. It's a rare disease. But the type 1 is the one that they can't prove.
Oh,
So the people that have the type 1, it's usually like the doctors will say, oh, it's in their head. It's
ugh.
terrible. But you can't, there's no cure. Um, it's like they just give you like a stamp on your head, I feel like, and say, you're never going to get better. It's only going to get worse from here. And it's horrible. And that's kind of what I think that's what led me to all of this. Like, trying to find, like, that's what made me so passionate in this field, like, was the frustrations of that journey, you know?
Totally. Yeah. Can you maybe speak more to that and what your journey was like?
Yeah, it was going to different doctors and being told um, that they weren't able to necessarily find what was wrong. And so I would go to different doctors, and a lot of what I would be told was, we are not able to, you know, find what the issue is, and so you're just going to have to learn to live like this. That was a common theme, was this is how you're going to have to learn how to live. And I was still, I was young, well, pretty young, in my 30s. And so um I just said, you know what, this is not how I'm going to live. I've got a better, I have a long life ahead of me. I have 3 small kids. And so that's when I took it upon myself to do a lot of research. And that's how I was able to find doctors out of state that were actually able to help me. So being my own advocate was a way that I got the best treatment. But I had to really advocate for myself. And if I wouldn't have done that, I don't think I'd be where I am today in terms of
Yeah.
quality of life.
Yeah. That's so hard because, I mean, and we go to grad school, we have at least an ability to look at the research and at least somewhat understand what we're looking at. But a lot of people don't have that. And it's hard when you get told by a doctor or several doctors, like, we can't help you. You know, this is essentially in your head. And yeah, it's hard to kind of dig into that research and figure out how to be your own advocate.
It is, absolutely. And that's why, even with clients, I'm very big on trying to teach people advocacy. I think that is huge. And especially depending on where they are in their pain journey, I think that's really big. Where they are in their pain journey, advocacy is a huge part of that, in getting help.
How did you sift through some of the stuff online that maybe was not so helpful, or more down that path of here's how to cure this, but maybe that was more of like chasing, something that wasn't real? Yeah.
That was hard. I got burned. I'll say that. I definitely, made mistakes. I tried, because you get a point of, I think, desperation, because in the beginning, and it's that chronic pain journey. It's that journey that you start with, of you'll do anything, it's part of like that acceptance cycle. You'll do anything to find that magic cure, to get better. Um, and so you'll try anything to get better. So when you see those ads, you'll do it. You'll pay anything for that quality of life. And so I went down that path. I would try things, and I didn't care how much they cost. As I went through the process, though, and I started to accept more of what I had, and started to learn to live with my disease, and how can I make my life better with what I have? How do I learn to live with this? Um, I stopped doing that. I stopped kind of like chasing these ads, right? And then I was able to sift better through them because I had more of like the tools and I could think better because I wasn't as desperate.
Yeah, since you had that acceptance piece, you weren't trying to so desperately cure it. It was just a matter of, okay, maybe how do I manage this, or how do I make this feel a little bit better? Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say is the thing that you kind of realized or kind of got you from this place of chasing to acceptance? And if you can also maybe speak to what acceptance looks like for you now.
So it's a journey. And I think for everyone, it's so personalized, the acceptance journey, and it's something that ebbs and flows. We all have moments of how we get there, and then I'll have days where I have setbacks. So I definitely don't want to say, oh, I've accepted it and every day is rainbows and sunshines, because that's definitely not what I mean by that. With acceptance, there's an acceptance cycle of, in the beginning, it's very near what the grief cycle is. And so in the beginning, there was a lot of denial. Uh, First, there was a lot of, denial and frustration. They couldn't give me a diagnosis, and that took a long time. And then when I did get my diagnosis, I didn't want to believe them because when I read about it, it was very scary. And that was probably one of the worst things I did was I researched it. I went to groups about it that were on the internet, and that really scared me because some of the groups were not very positive, and they were very negative about the condition I had. So that scared me. So then I got very scared. Um, so I went to therapy. That helped me with accepting it. Then I started to do my own research and advocacy on what can I do to get my condition more manageable, like doctors who specialize in what I have. And that really helped me. So I was able to find better help in terms of managing my disease. So I was able to do that. And as I was able to, that helped move me towards like the acceptance stage of getting better, like a better like medical team, doctors that I felt really heard, because I learned to also advocate for myself when I went to doctors, asking them questions and also being a part of my medical treatment.
It sounds like through therapy, that support helped you move past the fear of it all. And then you were able to kind of get into the acceptance and maybe even some hopefulness by finding doctors that you trusted.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's hard because, yeah, like we already said, it's hard to find doctors that you trust because a lot of them do just kind of tell you this isn't a thing or there's nothing wrong with you. I don't think a lot of them actually say this is in your head, but that is the message that we receive over and over again. Can you tell me a little bit about your research and helping you find something specifically for your diagnosis, for you to find those doctors that specifically worked with your diagnosis?
In terms of what I researched, or
Yeah, just like, it's a process, right? And so it can even be hard sometimes to think back to the specifics and it all kind of molds together and blends together. But if somebody were right now, like in that transitional stage and they were trying to find doctors who could actually help them, what is like the first thing that they could start to Google? And then what would they be looking for on Google?
absolutely. So I hate to give medical advice on saying, look up through Google, but that really is what I did. I went to Google, I did research, uh, like top doctors that treat um, my condition, complex regional pain syndrome. So that was something that I did. Or nerve, at that time, I wasn't diagnosed yet. It was like nerve damage. So I started there, and I started picking up the phone and started calling different doctors, and gave them, they would do, a lot of times they'll do reviews of your records, they'll do consults. I talked to the Mayo Clinic. um, I would talk to I would talk to them. It was very tiring and it was very difficult, but I did it because no one else was going to do it for me. And that's what I realized, is that I'm my own best advocate, and I know my body, and no one knows your body and yourself better than you. And even though I didn't want to, and it was a struggle and it was very difficult, no one else was going to pick up that phone and call these doctors on my behalf. And no other doctor would. No one else was. So that's where I started, was just with the top hospitals that would specialize in an area that was of concern.
I think that's why therapy is so important throughout this process, because like you said, it actually isn't about giving medical advice. It's actually about, we have to at least find information that will then help our intuition guide us towards what's right and what's wrong. Otherwise we're just kind of like walking through a dark room with no guidance. And so it helps to have those Google searches. Just about everyone I know, and many therapists on this podcast, has said, like, Google is what helped me get my diagnosis. And I find it incredibly sad, but I also think, yeah, like, it's just in the system we have, these doctors have 15 minutes with you. Even I see a functional doctor and she's got an hour with me, but it's still not enough. Like, I'm sure you spent hours and hours and hours and days of your life on Google, and you can't expect anyone to do that for you. Unfortunately, that part falls on us. So you take what you learn and then you ask a professional. We don't just try to find the magic cure on Google. We we look at these things and then we find people we trust, which, like you said, it's it's calling, it's talking to these people for yourself so that you can hear them, or their team, their front desk staff, or so that your intuition starts to learn what it likes and what it doesn't like.
Yes, and gathering that information and presenting it, to a doctor, like, what do you think? Because that's where being an advocate and talking to them about your concerns and what you think, could this be a possibility? That was something I did a lot. Is if I found something that maybe could I have this, I would always do that consistently. And the doctors do, when you find a good one, they will listen to you. They really will.
Yeah. And then it's a mix of, like, do they already know enough about your pain, or your diagnosis, or are they willing to do a little bit of extra research on the side, if they don't know enough? But yeah, the good ones I find will talk to you. They'll ask you questions. They'll listen. It's hard to find, but it's doable.
Yes. And having a good family doctor was another big key for me as well.
Okay. Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, she was the one that, through all the doctors, and for most people, your family doctor acts like the hub of they should be the medical hub of all the specialists. And so they would do a lot of the referrals. And so if you have a good relationship with your family doctor, I really do encourage people to have a good family doctor, that they have a relationship with, they are able to communicate with all the specialists. And so whenever I would find a specialist that I liked, that had good reviews, that I had talked to other people, I would just let her know. And then she would send out the referral, and she talks to all my doctors, all of them. And she's like the point person. So that was really key as well. Um, so
Did,
I've worked with her for a long time.
yeah. Did you do anything specific to build that relationship, or was that something you had already been built? Like you just kind of got lucky with her in the beginning and stuck with her over time?
I had been with her from the beginning, but one thing I did is I kept frequent contact with her. I sent her the notes. I was very proactive. I would send her all the notes when I went to a specialist. I would upload them into the portal. So I was proactive in that sense, which helps build a sense of trust.
That's a good point. I think a lot of people get the sense that they don't want to bother their doctors, or it's like this isn't really their job to like read over X, Y, and Z. But it's not just about helping us build trust with the doctor. It's also, it helps your doctor build trust with you. Like you're doing what you need to be doing. And so if there is something that still isn't making sense, they're not going to come at you and blame you. They're going to be like, wow, yeah, I've seen all of this stuff that you've been doing and it still doesn't make sense. And I'm so sorry. And what, like, how can I help?
Yes, because you're being that's where that advocacy piece comes into place. Like you're showing them that you are being an active participant in your healthcare. So I definitely encourage people to, if you don't have a family doctor that you have a good connection with, to make sure that you find someone that you feel you feel like you can build that safe relationship with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there anything else you could say about your particular pain syndrome that you've learned about over the years that feels like it can be general helpful advice to people, or even something that's specific to you? Then you can give that caveat of like, this isn't the case for everybody with this syndrome, but this has been my experience.
Um, Well, I think just with and I know with chronic pain, a lot of people experience the stigma of it's all in your head. I think that's very difficult in seeing clients. This is the number one thing I hear that people get upset about. And I've been there too. And from hearing it from all, I think, practitioners at some point, um, is that we've been told, well, it's in your head, or your pain wouldn't be as bad if it wasn't, something about it's been in your head, right? We've all heard that type of language. And so I would say, and in the language around that would be the symptoms, it's not necessarily in our head. We've got pain. We do. The pain is real, it exists. The meaning with in our head would be more when we get stressed out, our pain is going to flare up. So if we get super stressed out, our pain signals are going to flare extremely bad, especially if you have nerve damage. That is especially true because it all flares up within our body. So when we hear that term, like it's in our head, it's more about the what I always call our flare up, which most people experience that flare. So that's where like the stress levels and the mind body connection come into play, is more of that kind of fight or flight response.
Yeah, and just one caveat to that I always like to give is like, that doesn't mean our goal is to have a stress-free life. It just means that when stress pops up, we know that the pain is also going to flare and we have to figure out how to take care of ourselves through that. And maybe you can speak to that a little bit as well.
Um, Absolutely. It's learning. It can help us if we can learn to calm down that flight or fight response. Like that's huge because it's very easy. And for with chronic pain, when we have a flare up, to think of um, worst case scenarios. A lot of times it's very easy. So it's something that we want to train our bodies to not go to that place. And
That might bring us into some of your virtual reality work. Is
oh yeah,
is that something, yeah, you can speak to it?
yeah, of course. So the virtual reality, the one that I use for chronic pain patients, is actually the device I have is from a company called Applied VR. And their program they use is Ease VR, and they have a specific program for people with chronic pain. They used to use it in hospitals. They are one of the first research-based programs to show to be effective with chronic pain patients. So I was working with them on they were doing a research study with clients with chronic pain. And I had reached out to them about their work with their headsets and chronic pain. And because I was a therapist with chronic pain, we had teamed up together. So I have one of their headsets and I do work with them and clients. And basically the headset I have, it's very immersive for chronic pain and helping calm the body down. And this one in particular, it does like guided imagery, it does like swimming with dolphins, it takes you to different countries. It's immersive technology which helps put you in a different environment, which I have found to be very helpful for people with chronic pain.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So it's like guided imagery, but instead of you having to think about the image in your head, it's right there in front of you.
Yeah.
How do people then translate, they're working with you, they've got the headset on, and then they take it off. What is kind of that next experience that they tend to have when the machine is gone?
So if they like it, it's something that that machine is in the office. So there is also one of the things that they do. So I have got that one in the office, and there's another um, VR system that I have that's called now Amelia. That one we can actually do through the online through telehealth. So that one is also another virtual reality device that you can do from home. And you can actually turn your phone into a VR device. It's
That's
very
cool.
interesting. You use, I give clients these, they're like cardboard boxes that you use that you put your phone in, and it turns your phone into a VR device.
Huh.
So you can actually, through that program, we can use that through telehealth if they like it. And usually I'll use that kind of as if they're feeling really stressed out or they're just kind of need to relax. It's like a 10-minute, you don't usually for that stuff, you don't use it for more than 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. So it's kind of just helps bring the nervous system down, and then your work, your your work after that is that more in like talk therapy and navigating situations, or what comes next after that?
Well, it depends on what the client needs. And I'm really big on that because every client is so different. Because what might work for one client may not work for another. And that's where I talk to clients about what works for you in terms of what do they connect with. Because some clients do like talk therapy. Some may love CBT. Some may love ACT. I know I'm throwing out these like terminologies that people may not know. Um, so I'm really big on meeting the client as to where they are and what is helpful to them. And it also depends if they want to do telehealth or if they're in the office as well, because I have animal assisted therapy too. So I'm very big on animals and
Yeah.
they're very powerful for people.
Yeah. Can you tell me? So I know it does depend on the client. So I'm glad you gave that caveat, because sometimes when we're having these conversations, we never want to make it sound like this thing that works will work for you. Um, it all just depends on your situation. But can you give me a situation with animal assisted therapy that it does work? Like, it could even be a specific example for you yourself, or a general kind of like client conglomerate example, not one specific client, but something you just know that has worked.
Um, Absolutely. So, well, even with the research, animal assisted therapy has been shown to relax people, especially with chronic pain. It's when you touch an animal, it's very soothing to help calm down anxiety, PTSD. Um, it's it's very calming having an animal there. It takes people's minds off, like, it's stress. It's very There's a big stress reduction, and it's shown that. And that's why a lot of people, even with chronic pain, are have maybe service animals. I've written letters to help people get like service dogs. That's a big thing that a lot of people with chronic pain do have, or may, because animals have shown to be very therapeutic. And that's why, in terms of having them in the office, if someone is, likes and enjoys our company, I will have Delilah is my dog's name. But I'll have her in the office because she, like a client, they may be really anxious. And Delilah, they can sense people's emotions and how they're feeling. And she will immediately go up to them and go up to, like, when they're stressed out, they can sense that. And she'll immediately go up to them and she will just sit right next to them or jump on the couch if they're comfortable. I'll let her do that. And she will sit right next to them and they will pet her. And immediately it's like their stress goes down because they are able to pet her and sit next to her. And there is something, that calming effect of being able to pet an animal, that helps people.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between an emotional support animal and a service animal? And also then maybe a therapy animal, which is what you have in your office.
Yeah, she's actually, so a therapy dog. So she is a trained therapy dog. And for her, what she did to get trained is she got trained at a hospice center. So she worked with hospice patients. She would go in and sit on their bedside and she would help comfort them. Um, it just, we would go in and visit them, patients. And so she would help comfort people and their families and be there to help bring comfort to them. And so for her training, we had to do multiple rounds, make sure that she could do that, be around people, have the personality. And then they would do a battery of tests to make sure that she wouldn't get scared. They would run behind her and like throw things. So they did a battery of tests to make sure she could be a good therapy dog. It's more about personality. A service animal is a dog that they have to be trained to have a specific service for you. So if you have, let's say, PTSD, they have to be trained to be able to, say, calm you down. Okay, I'm going to give like a very easy example. Okay. And don't quote me on this, 'cause I'm not a representative of the service dog commission, but like they have to be trained specifically for a disability. So like PTSD, they've got to be trained if you're having a a breakdown or an episode, like they've got to be able to be trained to come over and help calm you down, sit next to you, calm you down, and help you.
For
Or
example, maybe like if you're, or even like with diabetes or with epilepsy,
Mhm.
they can actually help bring you to the ground, and so that you're not
Exactly.
falling onto your head, or so they have a specific skill that they can do, whereas the therapy dog is stress. They're both stress relieving, but the therapy dog is more like sit and I pet you, and that helps relieve me rather than you doing this task for me.
Yeah. But they can also be used, service dogs can also be used for psychological as well. And I think a lot of people are not aware of that too, because they can be trained to help people with like skin picking.
Mm.
So there's different psychological disorders that service dogs are trained for
And
as
yeah,
well.
do you know by chance like what their skill would be for skin picking, or
Yes, they would, when they see someone who starts like picking their skin, they would come over and they're used as a distraction. So
that
instead of
makes
like
sense?
picking, they would come over and you would pet the dog versus wanting to pick.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. And or even just anxiety attacks or panic attacks. So I could see how it feels a little bit blurry understanding the difference between a therapy dog and a service dog, but the service dog is specifically also trained to you, the individual.
Absolutely. Yes. It's only for you, the individual person. So you can't really like it's just for you as
Yeah.
the individual person.
And then if we can just kind of explain emotional support animal, because I think that people get really confused with emotional support animals versus a service dog. And there's a lot of controversy around that too, around having them live in apartments with you or taking them on planes and whatnot. So just wondering if you can briefly speak to that.
Yes, and emotional support I think is hard. So the emotional support animal is they're like, yeah, I think honestly this is a hard question to answer because it is an area of controversy because they are there as support, and I think it can get a little blurry in terms of with a service dog, what's to say what's a disability and what is not. I think the only thing I can say on behalf of that is you've got to have the dog trained for a service. I think that's the biggest thing to remember is a service dog is specifically like they're trained for a skill set. Emotional support is they're there for something, for emotional support, but they really are getting away, like getting rid of that, I believe,
Yeah.
like in terms of writing
Letters and whatnot.
letters,
Yeah, I agree.
if
I
that
think
makes sense.
it does. I think it's hard because all of the expenses and the loopholes it takes to get a service dog, there may be somebody who has an emotional support animal that actually would benefit from a service dog and just they can't get access to it. But I think that also though, there's just a lot of people you know, abusing the word or the term, and it's not for a medical necessity or a psychological necessity. It's just this emotional support animal does reduce my anxiety, but it doesn't, I'm not unable to live my life if they're not around.
Yes, and I think there are still some, you can still use them for the emotional support. There are for disabilities, that if people have a disability, that there are certain circumstances that you can still use them. You just have to be careful where you use the dog. You have to use judgment of where you're going to use them. And that's what you have to remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely complicated, so thanks for going there with me.
Yeah. Yeah,
I just think it's important to provide a little bit of education around, what these things mean and how they can be used.
absolutely.
So, can you tell me a little bit about the Empowered Relief Program? I haven't heard of that one before. I read your bio, so I'd love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a program backed by Stanford University, and it's a 2-hour program for chronic pain, and it's heavily CBT based, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy. And there's a lot of psychoeducation on chronic pain as well. So the theory behind the program is that it is supposed to teach you about chronic pain, about pain within our bodies, the psychoeducation. And then it also teaches you coping skills with chronic pain, how to reduce when you get like a flare up. And then there's also some guided imagery with it as well, some relaxation. And it's designed to just be 2 hours, and that's it. And after that, with mine, I like to do a follow-up after, just to make sure that clients are okay. But that's basically the program, and it's very research based, a lot of good feedback on it. You can go online. Stanford University has research on their webpage, and if you go to the Empowered Relief website, they have it on there as well. More information about the program, and then I'm a certified provider of it. So they also have the list of providers. So I am offering that program now. I just started offering it. I offer it for individually if you don't want to do it with a group. You can do it individually. And I do also allow patients to bring a spouse or a caregiver. I think it's really important to have someone with you if you want to have that choice so that they can also learn. And then if you want to do in a group setting, I am going to start offering groups as well, starting in September.
Yeah. And if people want to be in touch with you, or do you have a place on your website where you'll be advertising when that's running, or an email list or something that people can join?
Yeah, we were just putting it up this week. We're working on that right now. We'll have more information about it. It should be up at the end of this week, where we'll have the information about the Empowered Relief and then dates for group classes. And then starting now, you can contact me about doing the individual classes if you would like.
Okay. So probably email.
Yes, you can send me an email and I'll be happy to provide more information about the program. And we're also starting to talk to doctors about this program as well, to help start spreading the word about more affordable resources for clients. And
Yeah.
insurance does not cover it right now, but they will starting in February.
Wow. Okay. Great.
Blue Cross Blue Shield will.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. And so people can just go to that website, the Stanford website, find out more about it, and they can email you if they want to have a one-on-one session with you around this education.
Yes, or if they want to attend one of the group classes I'll be starting, they can also email me if they'd rather do a group session.
Great. Yeah, I think this episode will air in October. So it might be after you've already started.
Okay.
Yeah, this
I'll
is
be
currently July.
oh I'll be offering them every once a month. I'll be having group sessions.
Great.
So
Great.
by then it will all be on the website.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. So it'll be on the website by then. And on
Yeah.
my website, I'll have more info, like it'll talk about the Empowered Relief program. It'll all be up on there.
Great. Yeah. So people can just go to your website to
Yeah, they don't
learn.
have to go to the Empowered Relief
Yeah.
one.
Great. Is there anything else that you feel called to talk about in this episode? Anything we haven't touched on, or expand on something we have touched on?
I would say just the US Pain Foundation.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the US Pain Foundation, a lot of people are not aware about the resources that currently exist. that are free and affordable, like are affordable, free, that are currently out there. And the US Pain Foundation is a great resource for people with chronic pain. That is one of the first things that, or groups that I actually helped me when I first started my pain journey. And if they go to their website, sign up for their email list, they have tons of free educational opportunities. They have free support groups. I run the Georgia one. I run a free virtual group, and I'm hoping to start an in-person group as well. And the Georgia one is once a month. It's free and it's virtual for anyone in Georgia. So that's a free resource. And they also have just free like a toolbox. They do it on Facebook Live. So, and free Zoom, just like resources and teachings of different skills, like every month for chronic pain patients. And they do a lot of advocacy for chronic pain. So I really encourage people to go to their website, check them out. They're a great resource.
Yeah, that sounds really wonderful. I had not heard of them either, so I'm really glad to get all these resources from you. And even though the episode will air later, I'm going to at least put a couple social media posts together about some of the things that you've talked about, and post that earlier so that people can just start to get that information now. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, anyone, these groups are free. Like, um, they are good resources, like anyone that needs them. So what I'm trying to work on is creating a program to get certified, have special credentialing for chronic pain to work with them. So, because I got into that it's Keck Medical School of Anesthesiology, and I talked to them about this, and they're going to back me up on this. And
That's
so I'm excited. Like I'm
so
starting it in
yeah, you're
August.
going to start a credentialing for other therapists. Was that what I'm hearing?
I would like to, like I'm working on program, and to get into this program, it was really hard to get into because it's med school. It's
Yeah,
for a pain certificate program, and I get to work with doctors. Only 6 people got in for
that's amazing.
specialization. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it, but I'm nervous, because
Yeah,
that like they were interested because they were like, you have chronic pain, so we think, and I told them like I really want to do this certification, like, and they said like part of what they do is they help fund like what you want to do. And I told them about this and they were really interested in it. So that's my goal, is to get with the board and like the NBs, whatever, or, because I'm like, why don't we have a
yeah,
certification for chronic pain patients?
yeah. It really does need to be a specialty. I think yeah, I was gonna say it's hard because but that's the whole point. There's so many people doing so many different things.
There
Um,
is.
and I think like you said, like for different people, different things work. I have a lot of people that have come to me like after years of CBT, and I practice ACT. So there's a lot of relief in acceptance, after you've been trying to change your thoughts for so long. But I'm even now, like there's actually so many different types of CBT, and there's a lot more mindfulness in CBT now than there used to be. So I think there's also that's happening. So it's just complicated, but
It is.
a certification would be really great.
Well, and it's like, why is there certification for all this other stuff when 20% of the population has chronic pain, and that is going to go up more?
Oh
But
yeah.
and it's like this population, and you have chronic pain, so you get it. Like well, and
Yeah.
it's like such a fragile population, and I feel like we're
Yes.
just tossing it into the wind. Like,
I know it's like chronic pain. Oh, you have, like you just have some pain. It's like, no, there's so much that goes into this. There's so many psychological side effects, and there's so many mental health issues that go along with it. And it's not as simple as like, take this pain medicine or exercise and do this or that. It's so complicated. There's so many layers, which is why therapists are integral to this work, because we know how to work with the different layers.
I would love to pull like a team of like therapists, and especially ones that have chronic pain, and like be like, what do you see the needs, And so it's good to
Yeah.
know that you've got
Yeah.
chronic pain too. So
It
I'm glad that
helps.
we yes, I'm glad we connected. But yeah,
Oh,
I think that education is huge because we are such a large portion of this community.
and I think there's so much misinformation online, like we talked about earlier, the support groups that are kind of a dangerous place to be in on Facebook, and or even just, TikTok. It has some really great information, but it also has a lot of just awful information. And so I do think that this is our responsibility as therapists to take this on. Also, I feel really strongly about therapists being on social media, because there's so much out there. And if we're not on there, then people are getting that information. That's just where people get their information these days. And as much as we want to fight that, it's not fightable anymore. Like, that's where people are. And so even if it's like, you write your blog post and then you put an excerpt on social, like any small way that you can, I think it's really important for us to be doing that.
Yes, I definitely think that's important. I have a newsletter that I do send out, that people can sign up for. That does
Good.
keep people up to date.
Great.
Um,
I'll put
and
that, yeah, in the show notes, your newsletter. And,
okay,
and
great.
people can just go to your website and find it there to sign up. Is that right?
Yes, they can go there and sign up. And I try to, I'm going to be doing a listserv where I try to send out like email blasts of kind of the latest updates of different reports that I get, to keep people up to date on like legislation and advocacy, because I am part of also the American Academy of Pain Medicine as well
Yeah.
as with their psychological team, to also keep people up to date on that as well,
Awesome.
and just staying on top of the research.
Great. That all sounds wonderful. Is there anything else you feel is important to share in this episode?
Is there anything you can think of?
I can't. I think we talked about a lot of great stuff. I just wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to, yeah, not leave anything off the table. And I would love to do a follow-up in the future if you wanted to, especially as you start this credentialing thing, and anything else that comes up, I'm more than open.
Um, I guess, oh, I'm going to be doing a group of in parenting with chronic pain.
I would love to hear more
Um,
about that.
yeah, because there's no resources for how to parent in like parenting in chronic pain. I would say that's probably one of the biggest age groups that I see now, is people who are in their 30s and 40s and they have children. And it's very difficult as a parent to figure out how to parent and also have chronic pain. It's a very big struggle. And what I'm finding is that even through my own research on books and um, finding resources, is that there really are none out there. And so that's why what I'm trying to do is create a program. And I'm going to be doing a small group on parenting in chronic pain. As a mom myself with 3 children, I have found it difficult as well trying to find a balance. And so there are some skills that would be helpful, I think, for parents in terms of balancing, how do I parent? And then how do I get rid of those feelings of guilt of having, not being able to do the same things and go at the same pace as other parents I see out there with kids. So that is something that I think is very important that I'm going to be trying to help parents with. And I
I
think
think
is a
that's great.
huge need right now.
Oh yeah, it is huge. A lot of the work that I especially when I used to work at one particular agency, we had a lot of kids come through. Well, we didn't have a lot of, I just happened to get all of the kids who had chronic pain. So my caseload was the kids with like either autoimmune conditions or other rare diseases that also resulted in chronic pain. And a lot of the education for me, it's kind of the other side of what you're doing. It was teaching parents how to relate to their kids with pain. So I just love that I think both of those concepts are so important and so needed. And I don't know of any resources currently that offer that.
It's definitely lacking. Even trying to find books, I couldn't find any as a parent. So that's why I think it's important. It's kind of a gap. And that's something I've been asked a lot for by parents is where can I find resources? And I'm having a hard time finding them. And so as a therapist, I'm trained in the child parent interaction therapy. And so there's a lot of skills from that, along with skills in terms of coping with chronic pain that I think mixed together could really help parents. So this is an area that definitely want to expand more on and help people.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for all that you're doing. And I'm really excited to get all of this information out to people. I might even push the episode up a little bit and just switch it out with someone else's, because you do have some really great stuff coming up. And when there's a deadline involved, not everyone I interview have things that they're offering. So I think it might be okay to switch it out with a different interview.
Awesome.
Thanks so much,
Perfect.
Lucy.
Thank
I'll
you. So
talk
nice
to you
meeting
soon.
you.
You too. Okay. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.
If you learned something new today, consider writing it down in your phone notes or journal and make that new neural pathway light up. Better yet, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a DM on Instagram, email me, or leave a voice memo for us to play on the next show. The way you summarize your takeaways can be the perfect little soundbite that someone else might need in order to better absorb the same lesson. Lastly, leaving a review really helps others find this podcast, so please do so if you found this episode helpful.